you surprised by the Attorney General's announcement during the hearing that he is agreeing to testify, although it's going to be 5 weeks from now?
Well, he's agreed several times before, and he's always found a reason to back out. So I think most of the members of the committee feel like we'll believe it when we see it. I mean, it's scandalous that he won't appear. One of the things that Donald Ayer pointed out so well was that this administration has been openly defying the appropriations power of Congress. We appropriate money for certain purposes, and they steal the money to build the president's infantile medieval wall at the border instead. They have defied dozens and dozens of subpoenas that we have issued, demands for information, requests for interviews, and so on. They just categorically reject the demands of Congress, which is the lawmaking power in Article 1 of the Constitution. So, it was very powerful when Donald Ayer said today that Donald Trump is the biggest threat to the rule of law in the country today, which is resonant with, I think, Donald Trump's niece, who's saying he's the most dangerous man on earth. But we should really reflect about what the rule of law means. In the hands of the right-wing judges like Justice Scalia, the rule of law is just a law of rules. It's just what's in the statute books. But the American revolutionaries and the French revolutionaries and the Enlightenment thought that the rule of law was a system of legal controls against people who have power. They understood that the rabble below would always be subject to the baton in the ribs and the equivalent of the rubber bullets and the tear gas and so on. But the rule of law was a way to control people who get state power. And that's what they're in the process of trying to demolish by taking over every governmental entity and stuffing it with their authoritarian puppets and then wiping out the civil rights and civil liberties of the people. So we've got a few months left to try to defend democracy at every turn on a daily basis. And we will continue to see these chaotic circus shows by people like Louis Gohmert, who, believe it or not, was a judge in Texas, which gives you a sense of what justice has become in a lot of parts of the country. But they're going to continue, just to, scrawl graffiti on legal documents and throw tomatoes and try to make as much chaos as possible. Why? To distract America from the world historical failure of this administration to deliver any kind of public safety or security to the American people in this pandemic, which has cost more than 120,000 lives of our people.
I want to continue with our analysis of what we heard and the important points of what we heard today. But Congressman, I do think we owe it to the audience to try to explain as quickly as we can why these hearings get out of control like this. There was a call by some Democratic members, as we heard at certain times, to the chairman, get the sergeant at arms to drag Louis Gohmert out of there. And the truth of the matter is the House rules just really have not anticipated clearly situations like this. I used to work in the Senate. I know what the rules are there, but I studied House rules today. The most I could come up with for unruly behavior was simply a rule about the House floor where it says the sergeant at arms is authorized to hold up the mace, the symbol of the sergeant at arms authority, before unruly members and carry the mace down the aisle of the House chamber to subdue disorderly conduct. These rules haven't really anticipated Louis Gohmert, have they?
No, or Jim Jordan, or a lot of their friends, Matt Gaetz. And if you're going to go down with that mace, you better bring some of the other kind of mace with you, too, because these people are completely out of control. Look, Lawrence, they won't even wear masks. And we even have, the Dr. Fauci and the president's medical personnel saying everybody should be wearing a mask. And they make it a point of macho pride not to wear a mask when we go into Congress, which is terrifying a lot of members, including some Republicans who have medically vulnerable people at home. And, Jim Jordan has made a point of never wearing a jacket. I don't care about that. I would not want to kick him off the floor for not wearing a jacket. That's a fashion statement. But when it comes to wearing a mask, that's a public health decision he's imposing on everyone else. It's extremely dangerous, and we've had a lot of members who've come down with COVID-19. And as you know, it is spiking all over the country. The pandemic is out of control in the red states, and it's a lot of the Republicans who refuse to wear a mask.
Neal Katyal, what we saw here in the conduct of the Republicans in the hearing is connected to what we're talking about in the Justice Department, because what we've discovered in the Trump era is that so many things that we thought were rules, that we thought were kind of unbreakable, turn out just to be customs. And being sane in a committee hearing is just a custom that was shared by every single member of the House of Representatives up until the Trump era. And so also with so many practices in the Justice Department that we had a sense were codified, we had a sense that there were legal lines drawn, but there weren't as many as we thought. And that's part of what was under examination today in that hearing, wasn't it?
Absolutely. So the first thing I want to do is agree with the congressman about Attorney General Barr and whether he'll actually testify on July 28th. I mean, the Attorney General has been scared of testifying. The House has been trying for more than a year to get him to testify, and he acts scared at every turn and dodges it. He's kind of like Trump at a spelling bee, just frightened out of his mind. And so, I'll believe it when I see it. I absolutely agree with you, Lawrence, that, the Justice Department is built on the rock of traditions and norms, and chief among them is the idea of independence, that presidents don't tell you, if you're at the department, who to prosecute or who to let go. Both of those storylines today are clashing because you've got the president saying, let go of my pals, like Roger Stone. And that's where the testimony of Aaron Zelensky today was flabbergasting. I mean, people like me who've worked at the department before, we've heard it whispered from all sorts of people. People have called me, prosecutors at the very top of the department and, in the career, in the middle ranks, saying, this is unbelievable. They've politicized law enforcement. You can't believe it. But they've been afraid to testify. Here you've got this brave guy, Aaron Zelensky, career prosecutor, who's evidently documented everything. That's what he testified today. And he said this president was interfering with law enforcement decisions by telling him to go easy on his pals. And then there was other testimony today from other folks saying this president is saying to go hard on his enemies and use the prosecution power. And once that happens, our law enforcement system, is will become on the verge of collapse because it depends on the integrity and even-handed enforcement of the law, as all law enforcement systems do.
Neal Katyal, a quick word about the appeals court ruling on the Michael Flynn case today, saying that it should be dismissed. Is that the end of this story?
Oh, absolutely not. First of all, the opinion is legally flimsy, to put it mildly, and so it very well may get further appeals. Second, the president said that Michael Flynn was exonerated today. Nothing in the decision says anything about that, Lawrence. It's just about, does the president have the raw power to drop a prosecution after someone pleads guilty? And, the exercise of raw power is very different than the wisdom of doing it. Here, everyone agrees this guy, the national security advisor to the president, pled guilty for lying to the FBI about his conversation with the Russians. And that gave the Russians huge compromise because they knew that our national security advisor was now compromised, that he had lied to the FBI. And could you imagine having that person in the White House, which is what the president wanted? It was a grave sin. It was criminal. And nothing in today's decision takes any of that back. And Michael Flynn is not vindicated as a result of this decision, whatever happens to it. It happens to be a terribly weak, reasoned decision, and it should be the basis for further appeal. But whether it is or not, Michael Flynn is not exonerated.
Neal Katyal and Congressman Jamie Raskin, thank you both for starting us off tonight. Really appreciate it.
You bet, Lawrence.
Thank you. After this break, today, the United States set a grim record. More than 36,000 new coronavirus infections reported, the highest single-day total yet. And at the very same time, a new poll today shows Donald Trump's disastrous response to the pandemic is possibly the main reason for Joe